We're not in any danger. Your fifth favorite podcast about, at this point, probably your second or third favorite soccer team. I can I comfortably say for all three of us, I think it's about the third now, just based on enjoyment I have while watching this team. This is very cynical to start. I apologize.
The Union are still doing better than the U.S. men's national team.
That's fair. That's fair. And then Justin, I'm sure they've been eclipsed by the Riverhounds, and then maybe even by Brighton at this point.
Oh, they've definitely been eclipsed by Brighton at this point. The Riverhounds, I'm kind of in the same spot with both teams of like, all right, cool. You're in a playoff hunt, but does it really matter once playoffs start? Anyway, we'll talk about it, but I don't know. Brighton's definitely up there.
I was going to say
in the Pennsylvania water.
Yeah, both sides of both coasts of Pennsylvania are having a bad time. The Philadelphia Union season is kind of like explaining to your parents that one thing that you're really into, but like they're just never going to get it. Like soccer podcasting or Dungeons and Dragons, or like if they ask you how search engines work, but like on a technical level, in that you can do it, but why? And what's it good for? And here we are.
Let me tell you about SEOs and keywords. And
yeah, so they're all called web crawlers technically. And what those do. Okay, so there's like 7 games left or something. Basically, there's 2 months left in the season. We're in 11th place in the Eastern Conference. Mathematically, there's totally ways that we make it to like 4th probably, but let's not think about that. Realistically, we're probably looking at somewhere between 6 and 10 or whatever the last playoff spot is now, because the playoffs suck. And my question is, do we want that?
So my thought on that, I guess, is like, what changes if we don't get there? And my feeling on that question is nothing. So I think I would rather have a chance. Like, I think I'd rather get to the playoffs and have a chance and see what happens versus not making the playoffs, nothing changing, and then this happening again next year with no expectation of us actually being good next year.
So, don't you think that there's potentially more of a chance that something changes missing the playoffs because you can't view the season as a success in that point? Because, like, I would hope that no matter what happens, unless they win MLS Cup, which, like, if they win MLS Cup, like, have at it, that there's no way that this season is viewed as a success, but that the Union have viewed less as a success in the past. But, like, a lot already needs to change, just even considering the players that have already been lost over the course of these past months and the players that the Union will continue to lose during the winter transfer window.
I don't want the club and okay, actually here, I'm gonna be nice. I'm glad that at least as far as they didn't raise season ticket prices for next year, like those are all the same. Like that's some of the kind of like greedy monetary front office things that they could have done and been kind of in step with the rest of MLS doing so. They didn't do. So that's nice. But from a on the field product and like you're selling all these players and there just seems to be absolutely no thought about what to do after you sell your players. And now that you've sold a lot of these big pieces and I mean, I guess we can debate on whether or not Damian Lowe was a big piece, but you made a good bit of money off of him. And then obviously with Martinez leaving for, that rumored number, it's just like there's nothing. Like, I don't want the front office to be like, well, we made the playoffs and we won a playoff game, maybe, because that just is like you can look at a lot of other teams in the league and you're still doing better than they are at that point. I think if you miss the playoffs, especially now that they're expanded, you have to kind of be like, oh man, we couldn't even do that. And then especially losing in penalty kicks in the Leagues Cup, which I almost called the Nations League, which would have gotten you like a Champions League spot. Like now, which I mean, would have probably been the worst thing possible for 2025 because you have no depth now and you will have less depth later. But it's just, I think the worst thing that happens is we get super hot Portland Timbers MLS Cup winning season style and they just go on a tear and win the thing out of nowhere. And then I think we're stuck for an eternity with whatever this is going to be. But it's tricky because it's like, well, the talent I think is there to make the playoffs. But what does that do as far as the message it sends to the people in charge of this? It sucks.
Well,
this is terrible.
Also, I mean, considering that 3 of the last 7 games are against the top 3 in the East with Inter Miami, Cincinnati, and Columbus, like, I don't even know if this team has the talent to make the playoffs because you're going to have to win at least one of those games. Like, well, yeah, you have a game in hand on Toronto and DC for that play-in game with basically the right to play Miami again, which, like, who wants to actually play a 3-game series against Miami?
I that. Oh, I thought we were still single elimination world for all this. Oh yeah, don't miss the playoffs. I'm firmly team miss the play. No, we can't. No. Can we? Okay, like I like that we beat Red Bull. Like even when we're really bad, we can still beat Red Bull, which is fascinating. And like if the only other win we get is DC and then like randomly Cincinnati, because they'll probably pull their starters. So they're going to be playing like bad year USL Championship Cincinnati team at that point. Like Jimmy McLaughlin might get minutes. Like that's fine, but like I don't need to see this team pretend to care about 2 more games against Inter. Like kill me.
Oh, but they would love
No.
the ticket sales of Messi coming to Philly
when they were in town, so they'd finally get to be like, he's here, and they would only sell tickets to Miami fans, which is fine. Like whatever, I don't know. Have a nice little postseason gate, and then spend it to sign CJ only. Sorry, I shouldn't be. That's my favorite discourse is when it's like, oh, they signed an academy kid, that's going to save us. It's like it's not the same thing.
Well, they signed the academy kid that may save them, but he still can't play when they need him to play. And Calvin Sullivan.
Can we pivot next year to just talking about the second team because they're fun and they play kind of wide open soccer? And when they make mistakes, you're like, oh, they're kids. It's fine. This team, it's like you're a 33-year-old man. What are you doing? Stop it.
When Jack McLinn is sold, we're not going to have a choice because there won't be midfielders unless they come from the second team.
So, all right. I mean, going back to my point, and I'll say it again.
Yeah, Justin, you said something on this podcast. What was it?
Do you, in your heart of hearts, believe that if the Union missed the playoffs this year, anything is actually going?
No,
yes,
and I'm going to answer
sign
that
new players.
There is one thing that may change is that the Union would be in the Open Cup next year.
No, stop. The faces on the team will change. The quality of player, the quality of player who's playing on the team will not change. And so, to your point, Evan, if this is the year the Union go Portland Timbers hot for the next 7 games, and then make a miraculous run through the playoffs and take out these teams, I want that because nothing's going to change anyway. We're going to sign a few new players that all cost under $1 million. They're players that have been pieces in this league for years, and Jim thinks he can revive their careers, and then we might get one good signing, a la Gazdag, somebody, whatever. But like, we're not going to put enough money out there to make a like that everyone's going to go, oh man, Philadelphia's a favorite for next year.
So if
So
they,
my thing is, I'd rather see them just go hot and go ham for the rest of the season than miss the playoffs and us just do this next year of like, well, maybe they get in at 8, maybe they get in at 6, maybe they, whatever. I don't know.
well, what if, and there is a very real possibility, since it kind of almost happened twice now, is that what if the Chicago Fire just throw a bag at the Union for Jim Curtin this offseason?
So, to Justin's point, I think there is some weird sentimental feeling that I have, and I think that a lot of people have, about this being like, I guess stop me if you heard this last year when it was, we're going to lose all these guys. But now that it's like, we're losing these guys, there is like a last chance saloon, like, let's just cause some havoc and go on a tear. But Justin, again, to your point, to answer for both the Union and the Riverhounds, since you asked the question about them too, no, it's not going to change because the people at the top are still in charge. And they don't... There is a weird disconnect between the general manager or the sporting director, the director of soccer, whatever he's called, making money for the club and what the club then does with that money. Which, when the sporting director's job is to open up, to find these kind of diamonds in the rough, to get money for the first team, where does it go? And that's never going to change unless, I don't really know. And I like, the easy answer, I guess, would be like Jay sells the team or something, but like, that's never going to happen. And so it's just, we're stuck again with like, well, okay, like Justin said, it's like, we're going to bring in like 4 or 5 Damian Lowe types, and then we're going to hit on some guy that comes over, but he has weird visa issues that only we seem to suffer from, and doesn't get here until like June.
But in like a game and a half of Stanley Jean Jacques, it looked good. Like, if you can make 3 of him, that could be an impact signing for the team. And that is basically the baseline of the kind of player that the Union can and will be looking at, which unfortunately, like, you need to hit at higher rates on those than what Ernst Tanner's been doing recently. But like, they still exist, and teams don't have money around the world, which should mean that the Union can find bargains on the transfer market. I mean, even Tyberibo, like, looked like we were finally getting money for like the value for what we actually spent on him. So that, like, even if the signings aren't necessarily household names, there still are people coming in the door who can help. I don't think, making or missing the playoffs is going to actually change the caliber of who those players are. But I do just believe that missing it would add more of a sense of urgency than making the playoffs and just being like, oh, we got great attendance and bounced by Miami does.
I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I think I agree with you in some sense, but I think my thing is like, you watch LAFC this year, they bring in Hugo Lloris, Olivier Giroud, like, they bring in these guys. Miami did what they did. Freaking Galaxy went out and got Marco Reus. Like, this is not the type of player that the Union are going to sign, but it's the kind of player that is winning games in this league. And it's the kind of player that keeps teams at the top of the table.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, even if the Union had the money that the Galaxy and other teams have, being located in Chester, you're still not signing those players. Like there is kind of just a limit to what the Union can do with that location, because despite having great training facilities in comparison to the rest of the league, just no one wants to travel there on a day-to-day basis.
Well, and I think maybe not so much a Giroux, or not to say a bad name here, but like Gareth Bale, or Lloris, like they haven't even found. I guess Martinez was kind of it, but like they haven't even found like a Bedoya type guy where it's like you can be a game breaker early on when we signed you, or like Dre, where it's like you're going to be here for a while. You're going to start out and you're going to be a pretty big difference maker, I guess.
Yeah,
and then kind of towards the end of your time here, you're going to turn into more of like a mentor, veteran presence guy that's not going to bust open games the way you used to, but it's that culture of professionalism and that culture of winning. And especially when you have a head coach that literally can't win a big game, even if it's not that big of a game, against the Colorado Rapids at home, you need guys that have a history of winning something and not just like getting promoted to Ligue 1 or demoted from Ligue 1. Like it's got to be like they have won silverware, and we don't have that.
I mean, that's kind of where more inner MLS deals do need to happen, because that is kind of your best way of finding those people. Like, even
I would have ordered for like a Dax McCarty or a Darlington Nagbe.
Yeah, literally, I was about to say, like, look at what Columbus prying away Darlington Nagbe. I mean, really, every team that has pried away Darlington Nagbe has gone on to win things.
And that's what makes me frustrated about the Union too, is like you're thinking about in some sense, I think Brendan Aronson could have been that. And obviously you don't not take the money when, he's getting pulled away for as much as he got pulled away from, at Salzburg. And then, but I'm, to your point, to your point, Evan, it's like, well, we just don't have that guy who, like, cares to win and cares to help other people win and cares to, and all that kind of stuff. And that's what I'm thinking. Like, all right, cool. You talk about the LA teams and the Miami team and what they're doing, but then you also look at Cincinnati, and like Cincinnati in a lot of ways rides and dies on Lucho Acosta. But like that was a huge name and a guy who had won in this league and had done, on the other hand, you have Nashville, who tried to live and die on Mukhtar and has mostly died this year. But so you can't, it's weird because you can't put all your eggs in one basket, but Cincinnati went out and found a bunch of pieces to put around Acosta that makes sense. And now they're still winning games and still making a big difference and all that kind of stuff. So it's hard to know it's hard to know what the right mix of players is. I just don't think the Union have figured out what that right mix of players is. And then they keep guys too long. And I think that's what we're seeing with like Glesnes and Elliott this year, is like probably one of them should have been out the door sooner. And then you bring in another guy behind them and all that kind of stuff. And so I just think they're, and I don't blame them in some sense, because the success was there. You were in the playoffs, you were making deeper playoff runs, you were doing all the things. And so no, you're not going to be like, oh, let's get rid of all these players. But that's what's weird about this year for me, is I don't think there's a huge change in the quality of player that we bring in if we don't make the playoffs. But I think there could be yes, I think a lot of the names and faces on the team will probably change if we don't make playoffs. But if you go and make a deep run in the playoffs, there will probably also be a big change in the names because of the guys that are going to be bought and sold in the winter transfer window. So I just don't know. I don't know how to frame this team up right now. I don't know exactly what to think of them or how to decide what to do with them or what I want them to actually do in these last 7 games.
Yeah, it's like you either kept people, to your point, Justin. It's like you either kept guys too long, Lesness, Elliott, maybe Wagner. Yeah. Um, can I argue Andre Blake? No, not really. I want to, but I know it's like that's a very hot take because it's like we're anyway, and everyone else behind him has been bad, like pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, you had to sign Andre Blake, like you.
But like Bedoya, we've been on that for a while, and then I think on the other, like the opposite end of that, you've let guys go too soon, and not Aaron. Like I think Brendan opened the gate at the right time, but I think you probably could have held on to Paxton. And then the other one that I'm like, that's maybe a person we shouldn't have dealt was Anthony Fontana. And that one might have been a little bit harder to do as far as where he wanted to go and what he wanted to accomplish. But that was a kid that I felt like could have been that, no, like we're going to win things. And sort of stayed here for a bit longer. But that's all speculating.
But, yeah, and I mean that one's tough because like he more pushed his way out than necessarily the union wanting to sell him, and like you can't keep guys around like that who are pushing their way out. I mean, I feel like the really weird one, and still I don't even know what he's up to these days, was Jack DeVries going to Venezia after not really making an appearance for the union. And it's like clear this European team wants to like play this guy as a winger. And this was when the union still occasionally used wingers, but never tried him there.
Yeah, I think your shout about Pax is probably a good one of like, I think had they held on to him for 2 years, we probably could have got the same transfer fee that we got from Frankfurt, from whoever he's playing at now. I don't remember where he's at now. Feyenoord, maybe.
And Urich, the one that begins with a U, where he's with like right. Taylor Booth and that crew.
Yeah. But it's like, if you would have held on for another couple of years, you probably could have gone straight there. And that would have been 2 years of playing pretty consistently and all that kind of stuff. So it's hard to know exactly what the front office is up to and like what those conversations behind closed doors have been. But I do think that there's an element of, you're holding on to guys who you shouldn't hold on to for too long. And you're getting rid of guys too early.
So wait, are you saying the public town hall of being so transparent didn't tell you what the front office actually was up to and wanted to do?
Okay, and for the record, I think they finally figured out that like you can do the Kevin Sullivan style of business where you're like, let us keep him for a little bit. I mean, and honestly, Kevin's different because he's like 12. But to your Jack DeVries watch, by the way, he's in Serie Che, I don't know, whatever. He's in the third tier of Italian football on loan from Venezia. And it's like, I feel like that one, we could have called them and been like, can we just have him back until you're more confident in his abilities? Because like, there's no way the third tier, other than his proximity to the team, is any better than MLS at that rate. Like, that just feels like a bad opportunity to not loan a couple of these guys back.
Yeah, that's actually one where it hurts to hear where they are these days.
Yeah, I looked it up because I was like, Chuck, I have no idea. That's a great question. And I was like, ouch. That sucks. So there you go. There's your Jack DeVries update at VFTBPod. If you see Jack DeVries somewhere in your international travels in Europe, let us know. Yeah. Other than that, I don't know. I guess the Union hopes everyone suffers the rest of the season. So enjoy that.
Don't we have to talk about this weekend's game or whatever?
No, Lionel Messi is coming back because he's gonna have a flu game against the Philadelphia Union like he's Michael Jordan, where he scores 6 goals and has 37 assists or something. And
The worst part of it is I could see a situation where the Union are up like 2-1 late in the game. Messi comes on with like 15 minutes left in the game, 5 minutes left in the game.
fails it.
There's a freaking foul, 10 yards off the 10 yards off the 18, and Messi drained one from 28 yards.
Messi has his Kleberson moment.
Oh man.
Where he just nails one and you're like, yeah, all right. And then I don't know, there's a bunch of those where the people draw on the post-it notes and then they flip them really fast and it looks like a video. Someone does one of those, but it's Messi scoring a free kick on us, and it's really cool. But that's like the highlight of our season, is like being in someone else's like career-defining in MLS moment, which is fine. It already happened with Gareth Bale, so what's another one?
Sure.
That is we can't afford the really good players, but we can give them a platform.
This sucks. Is like we're generally a pretty positive crew, and
No, I'm good. I have to take up the mantle for Paul now that he works. That snake, hey, pun intended, he works for the club now. Ooh, gross, sold out. Cop. Anyway,
do you think so? We basically have 2 games. We have 2 games in the next week. How many points do you think we get from Miami at home? Is it? No, it's in Miami.
It's in Miami.
And then playing on the postage stamp in New York.
Oh Christ! Could there be a worse 2-game swing? Yeah, 0. Absolutely 0. Hey, do you guys want to play Miami away with Messi back? No. Do you want to then immediately go and play on a not regulated surface? No. Too bad. Sucks to suck. Hope you didn't want anything out of those. One of those is probably your game in hand too. LOL.
And then like coming back from that to just Christian Benteke battering your defense at home.
Yeah, and they're not tired or anything after that's their 3rd game in 10 days or something. It's fine.
Yeah, there's 4 games in 14 days coming up.
0 points.
Just a great MLS scheduling, after taking a month off for Leagues Cup.
Yeah, it's so nice. So nice when that happens.
It's great. We have fun here.
I still think my hot take, particularly based on goal differential, is the Union make the playoffs. Whether they get through the wild card game, who knows? I don't know if they can beat Atlanta or Toronto or whoever in a game, but I still think they get in because you don't have a positive goal differential and end up out of the playoffs when there's 9 teams that make the playoffs.
Actually, I do wonder how often has that, if it has ever happened, because MLS has kind of always let too many teams in the playoffs. Actually, Columbus, before the playoffs were expanded in 2022, missed with a +5 goal difference.
I was going to say, there was a year where it was like the East was particularly strong, and I think the West was garbage. So it was one of those where if you did it 1 through 16 at the time, it was like 10 were Eastern Conference teams. And it was mostly goal differential. So yeah, Columbus sounds right. I think there was someone else that year where it was like, well, if they were in the other conference, they'd be fine, but they're not. So bye.
Yeah, I mean, 2021 was actually wild because then you saw 3 teams miss out with DC, Columbus, and Montreal, all with 46 or more points and not make the playoffs.
I still think they get in.
I mean, I can definitely see them getting in. I just don't want to see them getting in.
Yeah, it's not that we can't visualize it happening. We don't want to.
And I mean, it sucks because like this does just sound like, you know, the ultimate rooting against your team, and it's like in general, I do want this team to do well, but like it's just very hard given the circumstances to see them get into the playoffs and do well against Miami.
Hey, congratulations to Matt Real on loan at the Colorado Springs Switchbacks, who scored a goal last week. So there you go. If you want to watch Union players that we could have kept do well, Hartford Athletic and the Colorado Springs Switchbacks are where you need to be right now, because that is a list and a half. And would they have contributed to the MLS team? Probably not, no. But, you know, makes you think.
Does make you think, for sure.
Yeah. Make us think. Tweet us or use X at us. I don't know. X, go and give it to you. How does that work? Tweet us at VFTBPod. Let us know how you're coping with the remaining games in this season and what you're going to do once the catharsis of it being over is upon us.
Later.